we are going to find some differences between chat completion models and OpenAI Assistance API. So in chat completions model, it usually takes some messages as an input. Then it uses some model, could be GPT 3.5 or GPT 4. Then you will get some response. So this is the flow of chat completions. It has only messages, takes the message and it uses some models, and you will get some response. So one of the main drawback is there is no message histories. For example, let's say you are asking what's the capital of Japan. That's our first message. I'm rerunning this. And if you check the response, it says the capital of Japan is Tokyo. Then your second question, you can ask, tell me something about the city. Let's run this. It says, I'm sorry, but you did not specify which city you are interested in. Clearly, chat completions don't have access of history of messages. So that's one drawback. Now the second one is there is no support to handle documents. For example, let's say you got some company document. Let's say this document is 500 pages and you wanted to know how much your company got in quarter 1 2023, their profit margin 23 quarter 1. Let's say you wanted to ask this question, and chat completions, there is no way it can handle this directly, but you have to do a lot of other things like converting the document to text. Then once you convert everything to text, you do chunking, which means the text is converted into smaller documents. Let's say this is a large text and this is to small documents. Then you convert this to embeddings. Then you store these embeddings in some vector database. Then during query time, if someone asks some question, you will try to find some relevant documents. Then you pass the documents to the model as a context. So that's how the flow is. There are so many things can go wrong. This process is called retrieval augmented generation. We call this as RAG. So there is no RAG support on chat completions. Now the third one, you wanted to do some coding. For example, let's say you are asking some computational task. Computational task. It could be maybe reverse a string or find today's date. So if you have some Python libraries like datetime, you can find today's date like system time. And you wanted to reverse some string, you can run some Python code to reverse a string. And if you are using chat completion models and you ask these kind of questions, it will fail. Let's test this out. So now I'm asking reverse the string OpenAI ChatGPT. Let's run this. And the response is TPGT, and it mess up here. You can see it clearly made a mistake. This is wrong. Let's check this. It says false. This is clearly wrong. And there are some ways to fix this. We will see that in Assistance API. This is one issue. And also, let's say you are asking today's date, it will give the date is wrong. It will give you some wrong numbers. What's today's date? Run this. As an AI, I don't have real time capabilities, so I cannot provide the current date. This is not helpful. And another important thing is context window handling. So, chat completion models can handle only some certain amounts of tokens. If you are passing some long string, it will fail. It will say max token limit. So, it cannot handle context window easily. So, that's one issue. Then, chat completion models are synchronous, meaning, let's say you ask some question and we have to wait until the model replies. So this is not asynchronous. So we have to wait for the model response. So that's one issue. Let's say you're asking something about telling a story. We have to wait for its response. We cannot just submit the task and do something else parallelly. We cannot do that. So that's an issue. Now we are going to use Assistance API. I will tell you what are the things we can built with Assistance API. Now let's see how we can fix all these things using Assistance API. With Assistance API, you can build AI assistants. Now let's talk about what are the things we can do with that. So this Assistance API has instructions. So instructions are like a system message that tells what this assistant's going to do. Then it has threads. So threads has all the previous messages. So whenever you want to ask some question to the assistant, we create a message and we add that message to a thread. Then we call the models. So that's thread. Then assistants has access to tools. So one of the tools are code interpreter. For example, let's say you ask some computational task like reverse a string. Instead of the model predicts the next token, it uses code interpreter, runs some Python code, and give you some response. So that's code interpreter. Then another tool is retrieval. With retrieval, you can pass any number of files and you can use those files to get some response. For example, let's say you got some PDF files. You can create a file object for those PDF files. Then you pass that file IDs to in assistants, and then assistants use those information and it can compile some answer if you ask some questions related to files. So currently, retrieval supports maximum of 20 files per assistant, and each file can be maximum 512 MB and maximum of 2 million tokens per file. So these are the current limitations, but this will change in future. Then another important aspect of tools are function calling. Let's say you work for retail and you ask the OpenAI models, what's the company's sales last week? There is no way OpenAI models can answer this unless you use your own database, run some query, and get the answer. Then what we can do is we can do something called function calling, which means you write some function that takes some input and it gives you some output. Then you pass the function structure to the assistant. Then assistant will tell you, please call this function with this argument and give me the response. So you don't have to compile uh, the response yourself. You just define the function and assistant will tell you which function to call and what arguments to pass. So that's called function calling. Then this assistant has access to few models. Currently, it supports GPT 3.5 Turbo and GPT-4 1106 preview and GPT-4 1106 preview. And also it supports in future, I think in future it supports your own custom fine-tuned models. So the main thing are instructions, threads, code interpreter, retrieval, function calling. These are all tools. Then models. So Assistant API can have all these things. So that's why it's so powerful. Whenever you ask some questions, it will know what tool to use. Then it keeps track of all the messages in threads. Then we can use GPT 3.5 or GPT-4 models. Then we can change the instructions. There are so many possibilities we can do. And let me talk about some of the issues I mentioned in the previous chat completions. For example, I said context window handling is difficult in chat completions. For example, let's say you have a very big messages. We cannot pass all the message to chat completion. You will run into token limit. But with Assistant API, the threads can access to all the previous messages. Even you can have like millions of messages. It will use truncation. It says it will dynamically select the best message for the query and it passes that as a context window. That's what it mentioned in the document. In future, they'll be releasing more details about that. But currently, Assistant API, it can have any number of messages. So that's one of the important aspect of threads. I think with this, we can create some assistant Let's do some coding. So assistant equal to client dot beta dot assistance create. Then you can write some name. Python instructions. Your Python teacher. Someone who has experience Java. That's the instruction. Then tools can use code interpreter colon code. Then models we can use GPT-4 1106 preview. So with this we can create a assistant. Run this. I forgot to add a comma. So we have created an assistant. So now we can ask some questions to the assistant. For that, we have to create a thread. The thread will access to all the messages that we are going to ask. So let's create a thread. So thread equal to client.beta.threads.create. And let's see how the thread looks like. So you can see the thread has thread ID and some created at. That's all it has. Now we can ask some questions. So my question is, maybe let's ask. So I'm asking the model to reverse the string OpenAI ChatGPT. Let's run this. So now we have created a message. To get the response, we have to create a run. The run connects the thread and assistants together. So run equal to client dot threads dot run dot create thread equal to thread dot id and assistant id equal to assistant dot. So we have created a. Now let's see what's happening. It says it's done, but what it does is runs are asynchronous, meaning you can just submit a run and you can do the other things. You can see the run. It says the status is queued. Now let's check the status. To do that, we can retrieve the run and see what's happening there. Dot status says it's completed. Since it's completed, we can retrieve the message and see what's the answer we are getting. So we are going to retrieve the message. To retrieve the message, we can use client.beta.threads.messages.list. So list means it will list all the messages. The first message is the recent message. If you are using chat completion, the first message is the last message. So that's the little bit opposite here. So you can see the message. Maybe let me print it more clearly. So messages has model dump that you can display. So you can see the reverse string of OpenAI ChatGPT is this one, TPG. I think this is correct. So now it explains how to do that. In Python, you can reverse a string by using the slicing method, which is concise way. Maybe let's print the answer. Yeah, see the explanations. I think to do that, our model uses code interpreter to run OpenAI ChatGPT and reversed everything. It got the answer. Then it compiles the answer. So it uses the code interpreter tools. Now, since our assistant has track of messages, we can ask one more question, make everything capital, uppercase. Let's do that. I'm going to ask one more question. The question is make the previous input as uppercase and tell me the length of the string. Let's run this. So currently it's running. Currently this is in progress. After a few seconds, it goes to completed stage. Now it's completed. Let's retrieve the messages. Now I'm going to display. So it says the uppercase version of the original string, OpenAI ChatGPT is OpenAI ChatGPT, and the length of the string is 13 characters. So it uses Python code to make it uppercase, and it uses a length function to count everything, and then it uses the LLM to compile some answer. Since threads can keep track of previous messages, we don't have to mention the OpenAI ChatGPT one more time. We can just say, make the previous input as uppercase and tell me the length of the string. It works because of the power of threads. I hope this is helpful.